Hi, and welcome to this episode of Damn Parenting, your English-speaking parenting podcast from Amsterdam. This episode will all be about literature. We will be talking pregnancy books. A little disclaimer, there will be another episode on parenting books, but on this episode we really want to focus on pregnancy books and the literature that both Aoife and I have read throughout our pregnancies leading up to the big event, the birth. Without further ado, we will introduce ourselves, of course, and we are your hosts, Maren Koos
and Eva McLaughlin.
And hopefully this will be an interesting episode for you where you will get a little insight on the books that we found helpful and have read, also the books that are out there and we have listed for you in the show notes so you can take a deeper look on other titles that might be interesting to you. So let's just dive in. Or what was the approach that you took when selecting literature to read and books to dive into?
For me, Google.
So no personal recommendations?
No personal recommendations. To be honest, all my friends have had their babies a while ago. So they didn't really, and I don't even know if they read any books, to be honest.
Reading is not required to have a baby.
No, I'm not a big reader, but my thing was I did want to kind of just get some grasp of it.
Yeah.
So my book, I went with the classic, What to Expect When You're Expecting, basically. And that is out for, I don't know, like 30, 40 years now. And they've got a new version where the daughter is having her baby and they've created their book. So I went with that classic. And honestly, like, I found it quite good because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it gives month by month, which is super achievable for anyone with, like, brain fog like I had in pregnancy. So nothing takes much effort. So for me, that was ideal. And it really goes into, like, what you need to do. But the only thing is, there's a couple of disclaimers as there will be when it comes to this book. One, it's an American book. So it really talks about all the doctor's appointments and whatnot over there. It's not super helpful.
When you're here in the Netherlands, when you're here in the Dutch system.
And her sense of humor is not really my sense of humor. That was the other problem.
Well, your sense of humor is debatable, so...
But yeah, it's just, there was a couple of things when it came to that. But at the end of the day, I just really like the month by month, how the fetus is growing, what the baby needs. I think what vegetable or fruit it was or something.
So it's kind of like the old school version of all the apps where you can choose animals. I think it was baby animals, food, and then
this
some
has
fruit, right?
An app, but I was just like, hey, let me get a book.
So this is for all the old schoolers out there, for you who still like to read a book. This is the offline version of the app.
Exactly. But I mean, it was still nice. And yeah, I was happy with it. And to be honest, it has like, if you look on Goodreads, for example, like 55,000 people have read it and given it a rating of like 3.8 or something out of 5. So I mean, like it's a pretty good recommendation. So that was my book that I really, got into, as it were, and enjoyed.
And you would also gift to someone?
No.
No, okay.
No, I wouldn't gift it to anyone, to be honest. My books, I wouldn't gift to anyone. I did gift my other book to someone because they specifically asked for it because it's quite popular a couple of years ago. But no, I wouldn't gift this one. What about you? What was your book you actually read?
So my list is very short because I only fully read one book. And then I started reading another one, but couldn't finish because then the baby was there. And then I had no time to read for the next 2 years. But that's another story. So coming back to the book I read, and the funny thing is, when we talked about in preparation for this episode, Aoife listed all the books for the pregnancy and how it documented the pregnancy, helping her through this. And my approach, I jumped right to the birth because I thought, I'm pregnant. Pregnancy will be fine. I don't need to worry about this. But this whole birthing thing is the event that scares me. So I thought this is what I need to read up on. So the book that I read, it's called Happy Birthing Days. And it's written by a German midwife who, interestingly enough, doesn't have children of her own, but has been a midwife for over 30 years, super experienced. And I actually got to meet her personally at a coaching training that I did, and she did translations at this training. So I got to chat with her years before she wrote the book. So she was always on my radar, and she's based in Berlin. And I thought, if I'm in Berlin when I have a child, that's going to be the midwife that I want to be taken care of. Then everything went differently. I gave birth here in the Netherlands. However, when she released her book, I immediately bought it and dived right into the whole topic of giving birth. And her book is divided through the different stages that you will be going through birth, and also has notes for the partner, how to include the partner and how the partner can help you throughout the different stages. And that was honestly the first time that I had read anything about the whole hormones in birth and how important they are, oxytocin, and all this stuff that you need to have a easier and successful birth outcome. That was super interesting for me to read about the different stages, to put my head around it, and then to also, when I started looking into the birthing courses, having this knowledge about the process in mind, that I could address my questions more specifically in the birthing courses, and also when I chose the birthing course, which one I wanted to choose. So yeah, that was super helpful. I have to say, I could take this approach of diving right into the birthing books and preparing for this because I had a very easy pregnancy. I never had to deal with any nausea or throwing up or pains or any complications, which I'm very, very, very sorry for everyone who has to listen to this now, who does have all this and has just taken their head out of the toilet. So you might have different needs when choosing books, but my pregnancy was super easy. So in my head, I thought, all right, I don't need to deal with this whole pregnancy reading. I'll prepare for the birth. That's why I dived right into this book. The other book I read or started reading, my doula gave me also in preparation for my birth, was Giving Birth Like a Feminist. And I just immediately loved the title because that was a topic that stood out to me and was attractive to me. Also, when I discussed my birthing plan with my doula and the whole experience that I wanted to have, it really puts this whole twist on empowering women and getting back into your instincts and your knowledge that you already have, really bringing this topic of raising your voice, raising the things that are important to you. So I also recommend, I've heard that people who have actually read the whole book would also recommend this to anyone who's not pregnant but wants to dig a little deeper into raising your voice, making sure you're heard, making sure your opinion is heard, making sure your needs are heard. So I think it's a holistic book for feminism and putting the spin onto birth. So this is one book that I would definitely read now, and would also read again if I ever have a second child. Then I would definitely read this, and I will always gift this book and recommend it to anyone.
Okay. That was the one thing when we talked about this episode, when you were talking about you read Birthing.
Yeah.
It hadn't crossed my mind because I was so consumed with 9 months that I thought, well, this is where my focus needs to be. When the reality is the birthing part is the scary part.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and I never even thought about it. And it was, I found it really interesting when you were naming this book and saying it to me earlier. And I just thought, yeah, that would have been handy to have. To understand the actual process is empowering you, it's making you aware. And, I think that's a great thing to do. So, I was quite interested in that. So, I
guess it really just naturally happened to me because, like I said, I didn't have any anxiety around the pregnancy or during these 9 months. I didn't have any of these negative feelings that a lot of other people experience. And also my body was just like doing its thing. And I have to say, sometimes we don't want to be ordinary, but I was very happy that I was just totally middle ground, ordinary as you can be, nothing special about my pregnancy. And that was good news to me. So I just kind of let it grow, literally my belly got bigger. That was it. My boobs got bigger. I had to buy new bras, but that was it. So I had the capacity to think about this big event. I had the capacity to really focus on preparing myself for this birth, because this was something that I wasn't familiar with and I had never experienced, and was really giving me like this whole vibe of, this is 100% out of my comfort zone. This is this magic zone that I have never stepped a foot into. So how can I make this less scary for me, less intimidating? How can I shed a a light on it. So this book was kind of like my flashlight, enlightening this whole dark room of what is this birth gonna be.
Okay, because the thing is, my second book was data-based because I wanted to know all the facts. I thought if I knew all the facts, I would have a good pregnancy. So the second book is going to be familiar to most people, and it's called Expecting Better: How to Fight the Pregnancy Establishment with Facts. Now, I didn't know the whole title. I just thought Expecting Better was the title. And I thought, yeah, cool, this sounds great. It's data orientated, and I just, I love data, however you want to say it. So it's basically written by a Harvard trained economist. So Emily Oster, I can't remember how you say her second name. She's basically written a book. She did some research. From my understanding, she was pregnant and she didn't really like her gynecologist or something. And she wanted to know why she can't do certain things. Like, why can't you have fish? Why can't you? And the doctors are just like, well, look, this is what we know, and so this is what we tell you. Yeah. So she wanted to go, okay, well, what's out there? So she's gone around the world. She's grabbed up all these studies. None of them are longitudinal. She's just grabbed different studies around, and she's gathered them up together to present this book. And it's kind of like about eating sushi. Like in Western Europe, it's like, well, no, you shouldn't eat raw sushi. But yet in Japan, that's like their national dish. Like, that's so normal. So it's like, well, why is it one rule for one country and another for another? Kind of goes into it. And I mean, she's even saying, alcohol is okay. Or, there was a couple of these things that I was thinking, at the end of the day, I wanted facts. And at the end of the day, she presented data-based facts. Yeah. And throughout my whole pregnancy, I did not change one bit knowing all this information she provided. Yeah. Because my innate mothering instinct was, you know what? I'm not going to take one chance and I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. And I know there's people out there, I don't drink coffee, for example. And I know there's people out there who have to have coffee. And so, she's like, well, of course you can have coffee. And doctors also agree you can. 2 cups a day, I believe. I'm not sure. The book for me was interesting, but I've actually noticed. So I got that book 4 years ago by now, and I've given it to someone who was also into data, but it seems to have really picked up a trend in the last 2 years, and a lot of people are talking about it, and they're like, this is an amazing book. Honestly, I kind of feel like I must have missed something, because I'm like, well, actually, it didn't change one iota for me, and it's just kind of potentially giving people the option to make their own decision then if they want to still proceed with the choice that they're looking for.
I guess the trend or the reason or my explanation why this book is trending so much right now, because there is so much opinion out there on social media, especially. Like, everyone can just say whatever they want. And if something is based on data, then it gives us, I guess, a little more sense of security, or this is actually factual based or science based or whatever. So I guess this is the straw that we're all looking for in this whole midst of opinions. Oh, there's actually someone who has data, who has a scientific background. So I guess this is hitting the nerve of us all being overtired with opinion, where we can finally, online, where we can finally say, oh, this is facts.
This is a printed book, so I trust it even more. Yeah. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, I just feel like I'm saying that I read this book. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's bad. Take it as you will. I know so many people who've actually read it now. I'm actually blown away by how many people have read it since I gave birth, because no one had it. I actually had to get it shipped in. But yeah, take it with a pinch of salt, and at the end of the day, trust your instincts, and just do what you feel is going to be best for you.
I guess all these books can just lead us to making informed decisions. Because what I found difficult is that I have all these different opinion or facts or whatever you want to call this, and then I'm just vibrating and can't decide on anything because I don't know. The more I read about certain topics, the more I get facts and the more I get knowledge about it, I can make an informed decision about things. So like you said, you were provided with all this data in the book, scientific data based on something actually. And this solidified your opinion to not do certain things. So that's also a good takeaway, I guess, that even though you know this is a fact, I can still make this educated decision now. And I can still take my personal take on it, and I can trust my intuition. That was really one thing when you were talking about how you read this book and then you said, but then I had this instinct and I had this feeling. So I guess reading all these books can also be a good practice to listening to yourself and questioning.
Yeah.
I'm reading this, but what's my
how does it sit with me?
How does it sit with me? And really not just reading it and being okay, I'm gonna do this. I have to do this, but I'm reading it, and what is my response to it? So really coming back to this intuitive knowledge that we have, and intuitive approach to things, and this voice that we all have, and listening more to the resonance that we get with what we read.
Yeah, I mean, reading is going to give us the peace that we are kind of seeking. The other thing just to note about Expecting Better is I think the book would have resonated a little bit better with me is if she had a medical editor on the book, because she didn't, and she's an economist and she just wrote facts. But if she consulted like a medical professional, that might have given me a bit more leeway or push. But at the end of the day, as I said, as you correctly point out, is like we're actually just reading to empower ourselves and to make us feel like we're doing the right thing at the end of the day. So so those were my two books, but I know there's a whole host of other books out there that people are enjoying, appreciating. I mean, there's so many out there for pregnancy alone, let alone the parenting one, which we will do later on. But right now, I think,
Just one comment on when you say there are so many books out there, literally. So if you don't have the resources to buy all these books new, check your circle, check all the sell, buy, WhatsApp, Facebook groups, whatever circle you're in, and check if there's any of these books floating around.
They're always floating around on WhatsApp.
Exactly. So this is just one little side note on all these books. You don't need to spend the money on this. Like, save the money and spend it on something you want to spend it on. There's the library where most of these books are in English also, at least in Dutch, but I think some of them are also available in English at the local library. But then, of course, all these books I have seen on every sell group. So check those first before buying a new book.
Definitely, keep saving the planet, buy preload. So that's for us. We just wanted to have a quick rundown about a couple of our books, and we are going to put in the show notes a list of books that we know are quite popular. We didn't get around to reading ourselves during our pregnancy, but maybe they might resonate with you, because at the end of the day, each pregnancy is very individual, it's very unique, and every person is also unique in their own way. So, just read whatever speaks to you at the end of the day. Hopefully you'll find something that really resonates with you out of the list that we provide in the show notes.
And until then, we hear you in the next episode. This has been Damn Parenting.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.